Good morning. This is Andy Pollack from Coastal Neighbors Network on Coastal Neighbors Network, Radio Free Dartmouth. And this morning we have the pleasure of having Linda Vandaveer from the Dartmouth Natural Resource Trust speaking to us about hiking trails in Dartmouth. So I'm going to make you the host, Linda, and I'm going to do that now, and you can take it away. There you go. You are now the host, but you have to let people in when they click.
Okay. If I do screen share, it's going to share my screen. Okay. So, okay. Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Great. Okay. Okay. Well, this is easy since I know Jan. I know Jan's familiar with DNRT. Peter, are you familiar with DNRT?
Yes, I've done a couple of trails. Haven't taken the dog with me, but yeah.
Okay, great. And I know Jan's a member. Are you a member? Because this may cut out part of my introduction if you are.
I am, I think.
Well, great. Okay, so I can skip ahead. So I will give you a little bit of information about DNRT. Land Trust for the town of Dartmouth. As you know, we have been around for 49 years now. I think Toby Hall was the second president for DNRT.
Second or third.
Yeah, so been around since 1971. In that time, we have helped to protect more than 5,000 acres in the town of Dartmouth. There's still work to be done. We're still at it. DNRT owns about 1,700 acres outright, and that's spread across 53 properties. We have 17 properties with trails, soon to be 18. That will be the Dyke Creek Reserve that's opening up later this summer next door to Jan on Bakerville Road. So when I have a chance, I'll talk about that at the end. Altogether, we've got about 40 miles of trails for what we call passive recreation. So hiking, trail running, bird watching, photography. Some of our properties allow bikes and horses, not all of them. And that's because every property is different. So, you know, some don't have the terrain that can support it, or the natural resources are just too fragile. So as I'm going through and talking about properties, you know, just to understand why some of them will allow things and some will not. Every property is different. A couple of other items of note. So Jan knows this, and it sounds like you do also, Peter, but we allow dogs on our properties, and we allow them off leash. That makes us a little bit unique among the land trusts. It's been that way really since the organization started. So we do periodically discuss whether or not that needs to be changed, but for the foreseeable future, that rule is going to change. Or, I mean, stay, not change. And that's just something to know based on your comfort level with dogs. So Peter, it sounds like you have a dog.
Yeah.
You know, I can talk to you a little bit about some of the properties that might be better or worse for walking with your dog, depending on what your comfort and interest level is in mingling with other dog walkers. A couple of things we don't allow. So we don't allow ATVs, you know, dirt bikes, those kind of motorized vehicles. You seem like folks who are probably not out ripping around on an ATV on the weekend. So, but if you have grandchildren or, you know, friends or families, you know, there's a place for those kinds of vehicles, but it's just not on our properties. We are really there to protect nature. And to provide, you know, these passive outdoor experiences. We also don't allow hunting, and that's not really because we have hold on, I'm going to admit somebody. We don't have an ethical issue with hunting. It's an important management tool, but it's more because our properties are not really what we would consider compatible with hunting. They're too small for the most part. And we, again, with the dogs off leash, that could present a real opportunity for conflict and, you know, safety issues. So we don't allow hunting. Important to note, some of our bigger properties abut townland that does allow hunting. And so I would just emphasize that it's really important to know the property before you go out on it. I'll reference our website throughout the presentation. It's a wonderful resource. I think folks who are older are very good at using the internet versus folks who are younger tend to really need things delivered to them on Facebook. So I encourage you to go explore the website. Everything you need to know is on there. But if not, you can always call our office. And so, you know, just again, knowing if the property is going to have hunting is the first heads up. And then if it is, you absolutely need to wear your blaze orange during hunting season. Hunting season actually lasts a lot longer than most people realize because you can hunt something, not just deer, for a good part of the year. So just becoming familiar with some of that information, I think, can give you a much more pleasant experience. Okay, so that's just sort of a little bit about DNRT and some basic information on using our properties. I'm gonna dive into the properties themselves. And Andy, I just wanna double check, I need to be done by 11 or is it 10:40?
11 is fine.
Okay, okay. I know Zoom has that weird 40-minute limit.
I know we have unlimited.
Okay, great. Okay, so DNRT reserves. I would say that I think we have something for everyone. We have just a range of trail types, challenge, you know, difficulty levels. We have so many different landscapes to choose from, you know, just about everything, you know, you could ask for, except for really steep hiking. If you're into that, you will have to go to another state probably, or another part of the state, this being Dartmouth. We do have one trail that has some topography, or one property, but for the most part, you know, we just have really great diversity. And I'm going to talk about what properties sort of excel at certain things, but if there's something that in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, I would really like to do this or see this, ask me at the end, and chances are I can point you to a property that can offer that. So I am going to actually give you, I'm going to tell you about my 5 favorite properties to start with. And I wouldn't say it's an insider's view because it's my view of the best properties. Everybody, you know, has a different opinion on what makes a property great. So again, if you're thinking like, oh, that doesn't really suit me, you know, I'll talk about some other properties at the end and you can always ask. My favorite properties are the ones that are frequented very rarely by people. So I like to go out in the woods for nature, for plants, for wildlife in particular, for solitude. And so the 5 properties that I'm going to talk about offer 4 of them offer a fair amount of that. And, you know, they're just, I really find solace in going to these places. And I'll give you sort of, you know, I'll explain what I really like about them. I do want to just point out this map that you're seeing right here. This link is, it's a Google map, but the link is on our website, which is www.dnrt.org. And there's a tab that says Go Hiking. That will take you to the page with all of our trails listed. And this is just a link. Everywhere that you see a little hikey person, that is a DNRT property with trails. I'll just zoom in. This is our office here, this little building here on Chase Road. But as you can see, we're pretty well spread throughout town. And my favorite properties, actually, one is way north, one is way south, one is way east. And then there are 2 that are sort of in the middle. So, you know, I don't have a regional bias, I guess you could say. And, you know, DNRT really, you know, can give you an opportunity to explore, you know, all the corners of Dartmouth. And we're always working to acquire new properties to try to highlight, you know, just the wonderful natural features that are found throughout the entire town. So I'm going to start with my favorite. I'll just start with dessert first, you know, stick to the good stuff, which is Wernick Farm. And so that property is, you should now be able to see, hold on, let me move this, and I'm gonna, can I make this go away? Maybe not, okay. This is a trail map of Wernick Farm. Again, this can be found right on our website. There's a trail map link for every property that has trails. So this is found way up by the Copacut Reservoir. This is Fall River up here. So it's way, way north. And it's this property here. It's off of something called North Albro Avenue, which is actually basically a really long dirt driveway or dirt road. And there's hardly ever anybody at this property. Maybe because it's so far away, maybe people are, nervous about being this close to Fall River. I don't know, but it's wonderful because nobody's ever there. It's about 62 acres in size, so it's not huge, but in that way, it's very manageable. And it has a lot going on for a pretty small property. We have a whole host of trails, which I'll talk about. We also have a real diversity of habitats. And actually, let me just quickly pull up, I'm gonna pull up an aerial map that I meant to have up here earlier. This is a wonderful website, if you have not heard of it before, called MapGeo. If you just Google MapGeo Dartmouth, it is, let's see, here we go. It's great. It's an interactive GIS map that includes aerials, and it has all of the property boundaries on here, and you can find out all kinds of wonderful things about what your neighbors are doing by looking on here. So I'm going to go here under themes. I'm going to go Google satellite. You can also do aerial photos from different periods of time. I'm going to zoom in here. And so this is Fall River up here. This is North Hicksville Road here. This is Cornell Pond, if you know that. And then these two properties are Wernick Farm. You can see it's kind of hemmed in by these subdivisions, but there's a lot going on there. So as I mentioned, there's a real diversity of habitats here. So we've got upland forest that's coniferous, upland forest that's deciduous. We've got field habitat. You can see these three little dots here. These are actually spring-fed ponds. The bottom half is a forest upland. We have a blueberry bush field. So lots of things going on ecologically. And when you have a lot of habitats, you have very few people, you tend to have a lot of wildlife. And so my favorite thing about Wernick Farm is that there's amazing wildlife there. And it's not just that it's there, it's that you see it. It comes out. And again, that's, I think, because there's very few people there and very few dogs. And so, I can guarantee you're going to see something really cool when you go. We have box turtles that we see all the time. We've got a giant black racer, which is a black snake. If you're not a snake person, just cover your ears for now. But that, people have been reporting on Facebook. We've got coyote, fox. Are either of you birders, or any of you birders?
Oh, I like to look at them, but I wouldn't call myself a birder.
Okay. Well, let me just say, if you're looking for a hobby, it's a great hobby. And this is a wonderful property to do it. And even if you're not a birder, there's a lot of things that show themselves that, you can sort of easily identify. We have a barred owl that often calls during the day. We've got wood ducks, a lot of birds during spring migration. And we also have breeding American woodcocks, which is, if you are a DNRT member, you get an invitation to our Woodcocks and Wine event every year, which is great fun, and is an opportunity to learn about these birds. But they're pretty special, and they're breeding here. Let me just check my notes quickly if I'm missing any really cool animals. We have a lot
one of my best experiences, I might interject, as a non-birder, was the fun of having, as a young kid, less than 10 years old, a bird feeder fastened to my second-story bedroom window right outside my bed. So I could lie in my bed with a shade up just a little bit, I could watch all the sparrows and the blue jays and the chickadees and so forth, goldfinch, come in to feed themselves on my bird feeder. And that was a great introduction as a young kid to birds.
So you're a bird at heart.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I went through a period of being a duck hunter also, though.
Okay, well, it happens.
Yeah.
So there's just really fabulous wildlife viewing at Wernick Farm. And the other thing that I really like about it is there's a variety of trails, right? So the neat thing about it is there's a lot of cultural history, which I'll touch on in a moment, but this red trail here used to be a road. So it's very wide, it's, very solid footing, it's not rooty, it's gravel or, wood chips or what have you. In day and age of COVID, you can walk with your buddy on, one side of the road and they can walk on the other. The blue trail is sort of similarly relatively wide. If you want something a little more, and also the white trail, if you want something a little more challenging, you can take our yellow trail, which is a single file, super rooty, super rocky trail. And this green trail is a great test for balance. I do it all the time because we have a lot of boards through these wet areas and this little boardwalk. And but there's something for everyone. And again, even though it's only, on 62 acres, you can cover a lot of ground and feel like you've seen a lot of different things. Culturally, it has a wonderful backstory. The family that we got it from, their grandparents were the last owners of the farm. They kept it as a hobby farm. And they had really wonderful memories of the farm. And they worked really hard with DNRT to protect the property. They bought it from a family who still lives in the area right down Fall River Road. And so when we opened the property to the public, we had this big event. We got these wonderful photos of the property from the 20s and 30s, of this family living there. And then, the next family living there. And it's really wonderful. And then there's an older history that I don't really know anything about, but I know because of the legacy that's left on the land, which is this stone barn foundation that's tucked into the woods. We kind of left it for you to find. It's there, but it's not cleared out or anything. And there's an old dry laid well nearby, which has since been covered, but is something that predates the records that I've been able to find about the property. So, just some sort of neat cultural features. This house foundation is from about the 1920s. And these ponds are man-made, but they are fed by a spring. And so when this house was put in, the water actually came from this spring. So just some kind of cool features. The blueberry field is a legacy of the Wernick, the last farmers that were there. So go a couple of weeks, probably be some blueberries. Don't take all of them because the family is coming for a picking event. So they will be very unhappy if there's no blueberries left. And then there's one other cool thing that I would just point out is this, on the yellow trail, we have a really big pudding stone, which is a neat geologic feature. And it's right there, on the side of the trail. So, you don't have to bushwhack to find it. So also, if you are interested in horseback riding or bike riding, you can do that here at Wernick Farm, or if your family is. So for all of those reasons, it is my absolute favorite property. So I urge you to go check it out if you haven't. If you go and you love it, tell one person, but no more, because I don't want everybody to go there.
And with those developments right on top of two sides of it, those people aren't in there?
It doesn't appear to be. No, I shouldn't say that. There are some people who horseback ride who I know are from the community, but no, it doesn't seem like they're really taking advantage of it. But you know what? All the better for those of us who like to go and not run into people. I mean, there's a couple of people who I think walk their dogs there regularly who are from the neighborhood, but it's just, you don't encounter people very often. There's just never a crowd. So it's worth the trip. It is way up yonder, but I highly recommend it. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next, whoops, yes, hold on, where do we go here? Okay, yeah, my next property I'm going to talk about is Ocean View Farm, and I'm going to zoom out here on the aerial first so you can see it. So Wernick is what's in blue and yellow now, and we're going way south all the way to the shores of Allen's Pond. And this property was our most recent acquisition until very recently. Let me just show you here. Okay, so this is this sort of funny looking pipe stemmy thing is Ocean View Farm. This is also only about 60 acres. And this has a pretty interesting cultural legacy as well. You can see it's surrounded by farmland. And it's very unique in that sense. We don't have any other property with trails that has such an agricultural setting and that is entirely field. But this used to all belong to one family, which some of you may be familiar with, the Matha family. So it was 120 acres that had been farmed by the Mathas since 1889. So it had been in the family a really long time. And Bob Matha, I think, lived into his 90s, you know, really well-known farmer around town. Anyway, we were fortunate enough to be able to acquire it from the family, and we ended up splitting it, and DNRT owns this section here. The bottom part is very ecologically sensitive, being right on the shores of Allen's Pond, and then this part to the left here now belongs to Round the Bend Farm. So it's an active farm. And then there's hayfield over here, which actually still is in the Matha family. So it's a very unique setting. As I mentioned, it's entirely field. So the walking, very easy. It's grass, one trail in and one trail out, for better or worse. You know, some people like a loop, and I can appreciate that. But this is also really has some really spectacular views. So even though it's an in and out property, you know, it doesn't feel like you're trudging back through the same thing. The other thing is the trail's nice and wide, so sort of like those driveway trails on Wernick Farm, you can walk easily with somebody and be socially distanced, or, you know, pass people on the trail, you know, and be safe. The things that we did allow at Wernick, we do not allow at Ocean View Farm. So we do not allow bikes or horses here because it's all grass, and unfortunately, if people came out when it was muddy, it would just destroy the trail. So that is not allowed. We also don't let dogs on this property. It's our only property where we don't allow dogs, and that is because of the very special wildlife that is here. So one of the most important parts of this property is that it supports ground nesting grassland birds. And I could give you a whole lecture about the importance of grassland birds and their minimum area requirements, et cetera. Let me just say, it's hard to make a living as a grassland bird in today's world. It just is, because current agricultural practices and bird life cycles are not in sync. And so we have two important species here. One is bobolinks, which are a really great bird. If you haven't seen them before, they put on quite a show. They're very chatty and do this great flight, and very easy to spot. And they are a declining species, but we also have savanna sparrow, which is a state listed species. And they're both ground nesting birds, and ground nesting birds and dogs don't really mix. It just is sort of a recipe for non-success for the birds. So for that reason, and a couple of other reasons, we do not allow dogs on this property. However, again, I think it is well worth it. It's really beautiful, and this property also doesn't get a ton of visitation. I'm shocked because it's stunning. You know, I just think it's really, really great property and an opportunity. You know, it's like I said, it's pretty unique among our properties, but it doesn't get a lot of visitation. For that same reason, the wildlife that is here, you tend to see. I can almost guarantee you're going to see woodchucks and rabbits, but I've seen mink. We think we have a river otter. You know, we have these grassland birds. We also have shrubland birds. We've got osprey. In winter, we have northern harrier over this field a lot. So, you know, there's a lot you can see: deer, foxes, turkeys, all seen in the middle of the day here. So stunning views, great wildlife. We have, I guess, two things that I would sort of say are, you know, be on the lookout for when you're there. And this is the trail map. Again, this is available on the website. You park up here right off of Allen's Neck Road. You walk along this pipe stem. You can look in on Round the Bend's cows through this. There's a deer fence that's here. About halfway down, this is about a half mile down, is the Joseph B. Motha Overlook. And that was Mr. Motha, the last farmer. What our contractor did there is totally amazing. So this was just a giant rock pile that, you know, at some point in time, the family took all the rocks that were in the field and they put them there. So, you know, whether or not it was because it was a low spot or it was just easier than getting out on the edges, I don't know, but there was a lot of rocks. And our contractor who put in the parking lot, you know, we needed him to get through the rock pile so people could walk because it was just a pile. He created this amazing staircase that is, it's huge stone, so it's not, you know, unstable. And it's just really cool, and it gives you a view of Allen's Pond from about halfway down. So if you don't want to go all the way down, you stop here, you can get up those steps. You know, they're, like I said, they're wide, they're stable, and you can get a view halfway down. And then if you want to go back, you know, you can. If you continue about another half a mile, you'll pass what we call Malcolm's Field. That's in honor of a longtime DNRT member and supporter. And you get to this observation platform, and bring your binoculars because it's a terrific view of Allen's Pond. If it's a clear day, you can see beyond into Buzzards Bay. Actually, let me see if I can zoom out here. You can just see the Elizabeth Islands on a really clear day. Let me see if I can get them on here. So that's Ocean View Farm. That's sort of the juxtaposition there. Yeah, so, you know, there's a bench there. We've got an interpretive sign. You can, you know, sit down and relax. One thing I would point out about this property in terms of weather, so there's no shade. So because it's all field, so just keep that in mind on a really hot day. And on these squirrely days where like I'm looking outside, is it gonna rain or not? Is there gonna be a thunderstorm? You wanna be very sure that it is not gonna be a thunderstorm because you're quite some distance from any kind of real shelter. Let's see, okay, I think that is it for Ocean View Farm. Cruise right along to, oh, I was gonna show you some photos. I forgot to do that for Warnick Farm. Let me just show you some pictures. Again, this is on DNRT's website. This is Ocean View Farm. This is actually looking north at our fields. Up here are the old buildings from the Motha Farm. This is a view of some of the salt marsh. And I know nobody is probably going to go into the salt marsh. In fact, I encourage you not to, but we have salt marsh sparrows in this salt marsh, which is a recently state listed species that is having real challenges because of sea level rise. So we are working at this property with Audubon to try to figure out how to support the sparrows and to support salt marsh migration inland so that we can deal with sea level rise. So a lot of important ecology going on here at Ocean View Farm. This is another view north. This is the rock pile / now staircase. So we took these with our drone. We don't allow drones for the public. Yeah. Anyway, that's how we get these great shots. So you can see here's the marsh, here's Allen's Pond. It's a little bit of a fisheye lens, but just a really neat property. And yeah, so if you haven't been up, there's the proverbial deer and turkeys. And right here's, the shores of Ellen's Pond right in view.
Is that Round the Bend Farm that's working on the house?
Yes. Yes. So they took down the milking barn that was there. I mean, it's really incredible. They've taken everything down by hand. They've salvaged everything they could, and now they're taking down the house.
Oh.
So our platform. I'm not sure if I don't think they're rebuilding the house, for any purpose. I mean, I assume they're not, but I don't know their plans completely. Okay, so now, oops. Oh, hold on a second. What do we need to do, actually? Now you're going to get to see me walk through this. Andy came on right when I was doing my last one, so I got distracted. So I'm going on Go Hiking, Reserves with Trails, and I'm going to go to Peters Creek is our next property. And you can see here's a description of the property. This is where I'm getting those photos that I just showed you for Ocean View. Each page has that. And then this is the trail map for Peters Creek. I'm going to zoom out a little. So Peters Creek is right here on the Slocum's River. So we're just going to go kind of upriver here a little bit. And it's these two parcels. And then we actually have a trail easement through here to get to our parcels. And this is a smaller property. It's only about 29 acres, and a significant amount of it is salt marsh, but you get the most amazing views of salt marsh from this property. It's quite unique. The entry trail, very straightforward. There's a couple of steps to climb in the beginning, but it's generally not super rooty. It's pretty wide. You could probably walk with a friend. You might want to stagger. And, pretty solid footing. And then we have a little creek crossing, which I don't have a picture of it up right now, to just get over this creek. And then you come across here, and there's this wonderful trail, again, wide, solid footing that comes down here onto this peninsula. You're on the peninsula and you're surrounded by salt marsh. And it's a pretty unique experience to have it on all sides. You can get a really great view from this area, but we also recently installed a bench down in around here, which has a wonderful view of this marsh. And we are installing another bench later this summer around here, which will give just a terrific, terrific view of the marsh. It's also one trail in, one trail out, like Ocean View Farm. But again, it's so worth it because it's a unique view, very few visitors. I mean, I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've encountered somebody else on this property when I was there. So, very, very quiet property. The marsh has those salt marsh sparrows that I mentioned we have at Ocean View Farm. So that's exciting, and we're gonna, I think, be adding that to our area where we'll hopefully do some work to try to support them through climate change. We have these osprey. We also have willets. So I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're a shorebird, and they're very vocal, they're very big, and they're very protective. So if you are the land steward from DNR, or land manager from DNRT, and you're going out to look for salt marsh sparrows, as I did last week, and there is a willet nest nearby, you will have to do your survey from the cover of the woods, because you will be dive bombed repeatedly until you get the heck out of Dodge. So it's quite an experience. Let's see, but wonderful property. In terms of, things you can do on the property, we don't exclusively permit bike riding. You could. Horses are a no, just because there's this little wooden structure that you'd have to cross over here. But it's pretty dry property. Dogs are permitted. We also have something here. Let's see if I can zoom in. If you're a kayaker, we have, we call it a kayak put in, and I'll show you on the map. It might be a generous term, but hold on, let me just get my zoom in here. This little spot right here, that's what this is on the trail map. And it's really just sort of a spot where the marsh comes right up to the edge of the woodlands. But if you're a kayaker and you want to noodle around, this is a place you can pull out. You can, hang out on the adjacent bench, or a nearby bench, I should say, and just, relax a little. Let me just see if there's anything else that I want to point out on this. Let's see. Oh, actually, one other thing that's just of interest. So we received a map from the trustees of reservations having to do with sea level rise, and it's because we co-own the Slocum's River Reserve with them. So the map was meant to be for the Slocum's River Reserve, but it encompassed Peters Creek. And what it showed is that in 2070, this salt marsh is gone. This upland is basically becomes a tidal mudflat. So if there, it was sort of the worst case scenario sea level rise picture for 2070, but I guess I would say get out and enjoy it while you can, because it may not be here. So, okay, and then I'm gonna move on to Smith Farm. How do I get this out of the way here? Oh, that's past Comansit Woods. No, I don't. This little thing keeps popping down that there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to my next favorite property. This is Smith Farm. This is located far east. Eye on the time here. So that was Peters Creek. So we had Wernick Farm way up north, Ocean View Farm way down south. That was Peters Creek. Now Smith Farm is way over here on the east side. That. And it's this property right here, and this one, and actually this also. So this is actually a much bigger property than the others. It's 140 acres, and I'll pull up the trail map. Here we go, the trail map. A number of trails to follow. You can see a lot of the property is salt marsh, so we don't have trails on it, but we've got pretty good variety in terms of, trail skill level and habitats. So this aerial again. We have a lot of field habitat on this property, and part of the reason this property is very near and dear to me is I did a lot of work to try to restore these two fields in particular. Over time, the edges had grown in. We lost about 3.5 acres to forest, and I have a particular affinity for grassland and shrubland birds. So I did my master's work on, and so we got a grant to actually remove the trees from the edges of these two fields and bring it back to its historic footprint. And you can actually see on this aerial, this is the area that had trees, and then sort of this middle part is actually what the amount of grassland or shrubland was available. So we pushed it all back, and that was to entice certain kinds of birds. There's a whole suite of birds that really depend on shrublands and these early successional habitats that are very ephemeral. And, if you don't maintain them, they turn into forest, and forest is wonderful, but there are birds that need other kinds of habitat. And so we are trying to support those species here at Smith Farm. That being said, you can see we also have a lot of forest here. So we are supporting the forest birds. We have some upland forest and a lot of wetland forest. This is actually one of our wetter properties, and I will just show you, let me see if the wetland layer does this justice. what I do recommend on this property is if you are here in the spring or the winter, wear some boots that or shoes that are kind of waterproof, because it can get pretty wet. So we have quite a bit of wetland. And let me just bring up the, no, keep doing this on that map here. So you can see some of these trails go through this. Really nice wide trail is this orange trail, which just like Wernick Farm used to be a road. In fact, it's the historic Featherbed Lane, which I believe is how the residents of Nonquit used to get in and out of Nonquit. So you can, walk two abreast here quite easily. It's gravel for a large part of it. It goes past these two fields, which is great. And then terminates at this wildlife observation platform, which gives you a really nice view of Nonquit Marsh, which is something that we worked with the Nonquit community to restore in 2014. There's a culvert that connects the marsh to Buzzards Bay, and it was sort of the classic case of when it was put in, they just put in a small pipe and it basically choked off the marsh. It wasn't getting enough salt water and flushing, and so it was a long time coming. It took about 30 years, but we were able to work with Nonquit to replace it with a really large box culvert, and the marsh is coming back, really strong. We're really excited about it. So you, again, bring your binoculars. There's a lot of great shorebird viewing at low tide. Ospreys, hawks, egrets, you name it, we've got it. Let's see. And then in terms of some of the other trails here at Smith Farm, this blue trail, we have a whole bunch of boardwalks. You can see it's really funny shaped, like this little horseshoe. And that's a legacy of some of the cultural history. The property, when we acquired it, we acquired that portion from the Portuguese Cultural Foundation, who I think are the ones who put it in as a trout pond. So it's very man-made, and we have these sort of series of little boardwalks to get around it. The other interesting piece about the cultural history is it is Smith Farm, and it was a dairy farm belonging to the Smiths. And just this past fall, we had a new volunteer join us named Tim Smith of the Smith family. And, they're still in town. He lives on Rockadundee Road. So it's neat the way Dartmouth's history kind of stays local. I really appreciate that about the town, among many things. So that's a great feature. And again, it's a little rooty around here on the Horseshoe Pond, but if you're up for the challenge, it's great. We've got river otter there. You can see fishers in various places around the property if you're really lucky. But that might be a good spot for them. And then I would just point out some other cool features. This little blue spot is a vernal pool. It's right next to the trail. It's great. You could just look over, you can see these egg masses, if you're really lucky and you're there, when there are active wood frogs or salamanders in the pond, it's right there. Just bring your polarized sunglasses so you can see through the glare. But it's a really nice feature in the spring. So, put on your boots for getting through some of the wetter trails, but definitely worth a visit. And this red trail, we have a whole series of boards to get you through the wet spot that our volunteers sort of tirelessly have worked with us to improve. It seems like every year it gets wetter and wetter and we add more boards, but we keep an eye on it. And one other thing that I would point out about the cultural legacy is this property also used to be a nursery at some point in time. So when you walk in, let me just see if we have this on the website here. I need this to go away. It's gonna be it. Let's see if we have a photo of it. It doesn't look like it. Anyway, there's a whole series of trees in rows that are interesting and different looking trees because they are not, native trees. And you can just sort of see the legacy of that. I'll just show you these pictures. This is the horseshoe pond, nice sunset shot, horseshoe pond in winter. This is the marsh. So this is looking out from our observation platform. And again, the marsh, you know, so different during the seasons. If you go in late August, that's when you're going to get, or mid-August, these, you know, shorebird migrations. So you might get a lot of really neat things. Go in winter and you'll see, you know, resident birds. Here's one of the fields, winter. There's the marsh, pond. Everybody loves this pine tree. It gets a lot of photography. Here's one of our boardwalks. Again, you know, good footing, you just got to get up there. And if it's been raining, you know, be sure to be careful because they can get slick. Here's the marsh again. Okay. And then just check on timing. Okay, we're going to move on to the last property, which is Pascomansit Woods. And let me pull this out. So Smith Farm doesn't get a ton of usership. I mean, you probably will see more people there than you would see at the other properties. Pascomansit Woods kind of breaks the rule because it's pretty popular, but I'll give it a pass because it has a lot going for it. So that is right off of Chase Road, and it's right near our office. This is our office here, and actually Andy is down here. And Pascomansit Woods is just right up here. Okay, so this is it right here. So our parcel is actually only 11 acres, but it connects to Gidley Woods, which is the properties in yellow. And talk about a rich cultural history. Oh my gosh. So are you guys familiar with Gidley Woods at all? Jan, you are. Peter, are you familiar with it? Okay,
No.
go. Okay, so Gidley Woods is owned by the descendants of the Tucker Gidley family, who have been here. This is their 12th generation. So they used to own all of this, and the family still lives. This is their farm here on Tucker Road. Forever, it seems, they've allowed the public to walk on their land. You know, they've allowed people to just go ride their bikes, walks, what have you. And there's a nice trail system. And we were able to acquire this parcel here to allow people to access it from Chase Road. The Tucker Road entrance is tricky because there's really no parking, and you kind of take your life in your hands, you know, to get across Tucker Road from any of the side streets. So we were able to put a parking lot in over here and connect to their property here. And our 11-acre parcel is wonderful, don't get me wrong, but you want to keep on trucking and get over here to the Pascomansit River. There is a stone bridge there that it's a reconstruction, but it's in the place of a bridge that's been there for hundreds of years that was on the road, the King's Highway from Plymouth to Newport. And it's pretty cool, I have to say. It's neat to be that close to the river. You know, there's not a lot of places, believe it or not, that you can get that close to it, because a lot of this is really just private land or, you know, very, very fixed, you know, riverine, riparian habitat. So this is one of the places you can get right up to it. You know, you can go over it on the bridge. You can even, you know, sort of tuck around down to there's a little bit of a shoreline, very small, but it's a really, really neat opportunity. And we're very grateful to Marge Waite, is the Tucker Gidley descendant, and her children who, you know, allow the public to use this property. With that in mind, I will say that, you know, we really encourage people to be very respectful on this property because it is privately owned, and, you know, they could suggest that they do not want the public on their property. And we had some issues when we first opened. People really took some time to get acclimated to the rules. Now things have really settled down. But, you know, we really encourage people to be very respectful of the resources that are there. You can bike, you can horseback ride, you can, you know, walk your dog. And the trails they vary in terms of they're generally pretty flat. There's a couple of spots that are rooty or a little bit bumpy, couple of spots that go sort of up and down. But if you take your time, you know, it's great. And they're nice and wide. So again, you can walk, you know, with a friend, you know, next to each other, but not within your 6-foot bubble that we now all inhabit. Great wildlife at this property too. Even though it gets a lot of visitation, we have a barred owl that calls here pretty frequently during the day. This pond, let's see right here, let me pull up the trail map. This pond gets really great birds. And I was actually here in May for about 2 hours on a Saturday, and I got 41 species of birds just within Gidley Woods. So including a barred owl who was sitting on a tree branch on the side of the pond, just, you know, casually blinking at me. It was really pretty great. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about? Let me just refer to my notes. Sometimes I just get so caught up. Oh, also have box turtles here. And here we have a plant that's kind of worth pointing out, which is the pink lady slippers. So those are those orchids. We have a lot of them at other properties, including Destruction Brook Woods. But this was a really pleasant surprise for this property. So we have some, they're right about in this area. And come in June and check them out. Don't pick them. Just enjoy them, and they're really neat. And again, you may see box turtles. We had a fox den in here a couple of summers ago. All kinds of great birds. A lot of good forest interior birds here because it's all forest. And then you have this interesting sort of riverine habitat, you know, sort of the riparian edge, you know, provides some interesting species every now and again. Oh, one other thing that I just want to point out that is kind of cool in terms of a cultural legacy. This has to do with our own parcel here. So this property used to actually be part of a fairly large estate that included all of this subdivision. And there's these little remnants of it that are kind of these neat surprises. So we have, there's this, I'm gonna call it a pond. It doesn't look like it on here, but on the trail map, you can sort of see it better. It's this little water body right over here on the left. So the woman who owned this estate wanted to have a skating pond, and so she had one put in. And then there's this like beautiful tile entryway to it. There's a random water spigot over here from like a, you know, she used to apparently ride her horses throughout. There's these really nice granite steps that go down into the pond. So just these like really cool little, you know, cultural artifacts that exist. And again, you know, obviously this is a very historic property given its usage, you know, going, I would say probably back to the Revolution, you know, and before. So great property to visit. Again, probably going to be more visited or more crowded than other properties. And with regards to, you know, I had mentioned earlier, dogs and dog use and just talking about people's comfort level. Let me just say that all of the people who have dogs off leash should have their dogs under control, which means full recall and keeping their dog in their sight at all times. And it's my life's work to try to make sure that that happens. But it's my life's work. A lot of people think they have that kind of control and they don't. And this is unfortunately one of 2 properties where I've had a number of reports of people with not great behaved dogs. So, you know, if you're not comfortable with dogs or you're unsteady on your feet, you know, this may not be the best property to go or to go by yourself, you know, or just keeping in mind these things. it's unfortunate, and we work hard every day to try to change that. But at the end of the day, unless I had a dog warden, there's only so much that I could actually manage to do. So
Is much known about the estate that was there? Was it connected to the cemetery at all, the stone wall?
you know, I don't know. It's interesting you ask, because the folks who live in this house told me about it, and they also told me that they had this giant collection of photographs of the property, to which I promptly said, could you share them with me? And then then I never really could get a hold of them again to do it. And I have thought about sort of popping up and trying to nag them. So I think somebody knows something about it. I do not, but it's entirely possible there is some association with the cemetery.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Well, the cemetery is a Quaker cemetery. I think it's owned by the New Bedford Friends, if I'm not mistaken. For what it's worth, because the Dartmouth Friends meeting was that probably was their cemetery. It was in Smith Mills, and the building got moved.
Yeah.
Well, Linda, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful excursion.
Yeah.
Very good.
I've been writing down what my plans are for the weekend.
And again, there are a couple of other properties that I was going to just tell people, if you want to do this or that or the other thing, these are good for them. But you could send me an email or call me or what have you, and enjoy, I guess is what I would say.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
Thanks, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.